This is David Crow. For those who don't, you follow demo camps, anything with the community, it's his fault.
Sorry.
David's been an absolutely inspiring and amazing individual for the Canadian startup scene. I think he's done a lot for the Toronto area, for Waterloo, for Montreal, for everyone's really been inspired by him opening his big mouth, as it's known, and getting everybody really doing something and challenging people. And I think it's great of Dave to come here. Appreciate you coming from Toronto and on a Saturday.
We all have, unlike Ali, some of us have to leave our kids behind.
Yeah. So, or our pen pals in Italy.
I have pen pals in Italy who are also woefully neglected.
Yeah.
So are my children, apparently.
Yeah, we're all there. So I will let David go in here and.
So thank you guys for coming out on a Saturday. I think of better things to do, but I would have left after Ali, or maybe Jackie, or sorry, Elia.
Jackie had Kung Fu, though.
Jackie did have Kung Fu. Jackie's got mad Kung Fu skills. Regardless of what she says, they just might not actually be in Kung Fu. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of things. And so how many of you guys did your homework and researched who speakers are? Everybody? Everybody read blogs? Anybody know what the hell I write about? Anybody know where I write? Actually, I don't have Startup North there. So anybody know where I write? What I write about? What I'm passionate about? I write about startups here in Canada, and it started, so I went to Waterloo. I have an undergraduate degree from Waterloo in kinesiology. It probably says a whole lot about how a 17-year-old male makes decisions. Have you been to the engineering faculty? How many of you are engineers? Most? Anybody know the gender makeup of the engineering faculty? You'll understand why I ended up in applied health sciences. But it was one of those, so I did an undergraduate degree here, and then I realized that it turns out that while the gender makeup was beneficial to meeting dates and a potential spouse, a degree wasn't worth a whole lot, particularly in building a tech startup. And so I left, and I went to Carnegie Mellon, and I got a degree in computer science. And from Carnegie Mellon, I moved to Austin, Texas. That's not true. I had to stop in Chicago for a little while, but where I started to work for early stage software companies. And I worked for a company called Trilogy Software, and I worked in a group. I started in a group that was the human-computer interaction group, and I left the human interaction group within about 6 weeks of joining Trilogy, and I joined the pre-sales group. So I've been doing pre-sales for the better part of, 15 years now. And I wanted to talk about, Ali said that it's not about marketing. And I want to tell you it's all about marketing. So he's lying. I used to think it wasn't about marketing. Is that just mean?
Yeah.
So, so who am I? I moved back from the States in 2001, and I got here and I said, wow, where are all the tech startups? Anybody got an answer for me? Where are all the tech startups? I'm still looking for them. And part of it is that this is what got me going, is, entrepreneurs, as entrepreneurs, we need each other. We need to understand where we find each other, how we can help each other, how we can connect. This turns out to be a marketing problem. For those of you who will run into me every once in a while, so these are the things that are of interest to me. I work for Microsoft. I run a program called BizSpark. I build community. I founded Demo Camp, Founders and Funders. I hosted Startup Empire with my friends Jonas and Jevin. I write at Startup North. I blog at David Crow. You can find me on Twitter. I have, if you hang out with me long enough, you'll realize that I enjoy drinking bourbon. I'll settle for scotch, but bourbon is also good. But And it may seem like a little bit of a joke, but it's a good way to meet people. It's a good way to talk about things. It's a good way to find entrepreneurs, to be social. If you don't want to have a drink, dinner, coffee with someone, you probably don't want to work with them. You probably don't want to start a company with them. And also, unlike Ali, I apparently have a higher purpose in life. So I have 2 little girls. The oldest is Aoife. Unless you're Irish, you'll never be able to spell her name. Her name is Aoife. And I have a 12-week-old Gwendolyn. But I want to talk about demand generation. I want to talk, how many of you wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to write code? How many of you turn around and, how many of you are coders, right? How many of you started writing code as the very first thing on your projects? Be honest. How many of you thought that you had the great idea to write code? You're probably wrong. I don't mean that in a bad way, but the challenge is that most of this is about finding customers. We're in the business. We're in business. You want to be entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, successful companies and markets aren't defined by the people who start the companies. They're defined by customers. And figuring out who your customers are and what you're building, the problem that you solve, how you maintain your relationship with them, how you generate demand and interest and focus on the stuff that you're doing is what this is all about. You know, in talking about how to build a pyramid, a business, you know, you're really talking about, you have to have some tools. These are the things that we use, whether it's Visual Studio, whether it's PHP, whether it's the web, whether it's mobile, whatever it is, you have to have a tool. You have to be solving a problem. But then you know what? In order to get that pyramid built, you also have to find ways to convince 10,000 people to help you. The way the pyramids were built was one way, but we don't all have that. So it's about, well, I don't know, unless you could, this is how become an employee at well.ca. But apparently they want t-shirts and they love working there, so it's the right form of slavery. So whether it's early stage businesses, whether it's mankind, but there's really 2 ways to grow. And it's really about building those amplifying tools or about goal cloning. You're all here. You guys all share the same goals to start companies. So amplifying tools are really easy, right? They're the tools that let us look big, look down to see things that are really small, reach out further in the galaxy, build bigger buildings, communicate further over wireless. These are amplifying tools. These are tools that amplify the existence of humans. You know, we can look at Maslow's hierarchy, we can look at different sets of needs, but they're all tools that push the boundaries of how the human existence. The other tools, and probably the ones that have been most influential on the way that people live, are goal cloning. How do you convince people that they need to work together with you on a set of ideas? First, there was movable type. You guys, I love talking to engineers. How many of you have read about Gutenberg in the press? You know, this was the first sort of innovation that allowed a shared goal, a way to print for the masses, that so manuscripts didn't have to be handwritten, that you could produce multiple copies of the same manuscript. Radio, the last picture is, how many of you are World Cup fans? How many of you have seen a World Cup game live, in person, on the pitch? And the reason is that, you know, these are the reason the World Cup or F1, very rarely do we get to see them, but we all share in that experience because of broadcast media, the internet. The ability to clone the goal to get people to talk about it. How many of you watched TechCrunch 50 this week? How many of you were in California? But it's this opportunity for Arrington and the gang to share this experience broader, bigger, to raise and elevate and promote. The interesting part is that it used to be a lot easier in goal cloning and building products and selling products. Because back in the good old days, it was really easy. You built a product. You were Procter & Gamble, you were Coca-Cola, and then you just had to get your message out. You know, you shared it. You thought small. You went out and you found the magazines that people read, the newspapers. You turned to these guys. You didn't have to worry about it. You focused on building the best product. And these were the guys that went out and said, let me help you sell it to America. Let me help you find out who your customers are and convince them that they need and want and will buy your product. Let me help make it cool so that most of middle America wants it. And they did it in a variety of ways. They put ads in newspapers. They got journalists to print stories. They paid DJs. There was, everybody remember oh man, this is going to date me. Everybody remember the Cosby Show? Must-see TV, Thursday nights. You advertised during different time slots based on what you wanted. There was 3 channels. And then the world started to change. You know, there was cable. Now everybody wasn't watching one channel on Thursday nights. There was hundreds and thousands of different shows based on where you were, what you were interested in. But it was still the same medium. You built a product, you turned around, and you sold it. You had the help doing this. It was really easy. You didn't have to know anything about sales or marketing. You were in the business of building products. And you outsourced it to these guys. They were safe. They owned those relationships. They bought big chunks of ads. They owned the relationship with television customers, with print customers. You didn't have to know. They were safe. They started drinking at 9 a.m. They finished drinking at 9 p.m. Then they went home to their families, maybe. But you didn't have to know anything about it. And that really was until the web. The web changed everything. The web gave you direct access to your customers. Every generation needs a new revolution. The web is that new revolution. Google is the first that allowed that micro level of figuring out who your customers are. What are they searching for? What are they clicking on? What are they clicking through? You could start to track performance and see what they were looking at and what they were doing. And this took the 1,000 channels of cable and made it the tens and thousands and millions of startups that are out there. And the question is, and the reason that this is about demand generation, is look at how many of these there are. How do you stand out from the crowd? Every week I probably get 15 emails. Every day I probably get 15 emails from Startup North on blog posts that I write about entrepreneurship, venture capital in Canada. And the average email goes, hey Dave, I see that you write about startups. Do you have time to get together to have coffee or a beer and talk about my startup? And you want to know what the default answer is? If you get one, no, fuck off. And it's really easy. Because just picture, this is what my world looks like. I get 400 emails a day on my personal email account. You need to help me understand why I care about you. This is what demand generation is about. It's about separating yourself. You need to make me want to pay attention. You need to make your customers pay attention. You need to make the press pay attention. Why? Because these are things that help get scale. So the great thing about the web, internet marketing, Google Ads, I think this is Bing, for those who care, but was that it gave you the tools to track what was important. What were the keywords? What were the searches? What were the conversions? Your customers are out there. They're talking about this stuff. You know what's interesting to them. Social media is the new black. It's the thing that's most important. It's how people connect. It's the glue that enables you to connect to customers, to their friends, to the technology, to the pieces that are important to them. The media, this landscape of how you reach people has changed. It's not about a mass push. It's not, what is my message that you digest? It's about the conversations that my customers are having, that people are having without me, around me, in spite of me, about my competitors, about things I've never heard about the cool thing that they saw in Prague last week because they were on vacation, about the great beer that they had in Pristina. These are conversations that people have, that friends have. It used to happen only in meat space. But this is the essence of traditional marketing. It's about attracting, engaging, and exciting people. This is the business that we're all in. You need to help your customers figure out what it is that you do. So sales, design, marketing, social media, advertising, they're converging. It's a big, scary world. But the good news is that it turns out that markets have always been about conversations. They just haven't been about two-way conversations. And it's actually about many conversations. It's about the conversations between others, about the conversations between you and your customers, between them and their kids, between them and their friends. Who knew that you had people that were passionate about the experience that they had about online pharmacies? Who knew? Would you have ever thought about it before? But that's what matters, because those are your sales force. It's a really famous quote. So I had this weird realization earlier this year. I had a Twitter post that was insulting many of my colleagues and friends at Microsoft, where I called them all names. I said, all Microsoft marketers are douchebags. And what I actually meant was some Microsoft marketers are douchebags, but that's beside the point. But then I followed it up almost immediately. I had this weird realization, which was, you know what, I don't write code anymore. I don't write production code. Maybe that's a better way to phrase that. I don't write code that ends up in a product anymore. Why do you think I'm here today? It's about putting a face and generating demand around Microsoft. So I realized that I was in the business of marketing. I wasn't in the innovation business. I wasn't building something new. I was marketing. I was sales. I was out there helping people change perceptions and make people aware. This is marketing. And most of you, if you're going to be a founder, at some point need to wear that hat. You can't outsource marketing and sales. It becomes a core part of your culture. You can't, the story that I was telling Ali outside was, you can't take a turd. You can take a turd and make it shiny, but it's still a shiny turd. No amount of sales and marketing is going to make it anything but a shiny turd. Your job is to build great products, because that makes it easier to market them, to generate demand around them. But that's a decision about a culture, a product culture in an organization. And it's based on finding customers, being empathetic to their needs, and building products that solve problems for them. You know, social media and we've seen this over the last few years, is a really interesting piece, because it touches both sides of this. There's innovation on the technologies and the tools, but there's also marketing. And you can see, you know, so when did MySpace become uncool? When did Facebook become uncool? When did Twitter when will Twitter become uncool? You know, it's just a matter of time. But there's innovation that happens in the development of the technology, whether it's mobile, whether it's on the web, whatever it is. But there's also a marketing. How do I find people? How do I retain them? How do I engage them? How do I generate revenues and profits, whether directly or indirectly through their activities? The thing about social media is that it just supports the conversations that are already going on. It enables the connections between people. So you're really looking at those needs of your customers and figuring out what problems they have, what their capacity and their desire to solve them are, and how do you build products and services that people become passionate about around solving their needs. How many of you run, I don't know, let's take pics. How many of you are MacBook users, MacBook Pro? How many of you love your Macs? Why? Does that, and there's lots of reasons. I'll say as a guy who owns a MacBook Pro, I love my MacBook Pro. And one of the simple reasons is they build great products. It's a very nice piece of hardware. And it enables me to do a whole bunch of other things. You need to build those great experiences. So it's easy. Build good products. Don't treat sales and marketing as secondary. It's a core part of your business. How do you go about building those great products that are the things that people pay attention to? Well, the first one is generate memories. How many of you have been to Canada's Wonderland? How many of you had a great time? How many of you have been to Disneyland? Or World? Either or. But Disney is a great example of this. They start early. Jesse and I will attest that with small children, they start early. Those commercials are all there. And it's all about building memories. It's all about, just like, there's the conversation about mama's cooking and those things that you remember as a kid. This is what they're doing. They're building memories. Little girls want to be Snow White or Cinderella. Boys want to be Lady McQueen. They build those memories and those relationships, whether it's and then it's the connection in the movie, it's the connection at the theme park, it's the reinforcement of those bonds, building products that generate memories, that establish an emotional connection between the people that are using them. Anybody drive a Beetle? Does anybody drive a Beetle? Have you noticed that other Beetle drivers or Mini, anybody drive Mini? Do you wave at other Mini drivers? Do you feel proud that you have a Mini? Yeah. There's an emotional connection behind a purchasing decision. It's no different than a Yugo. It probably falls apart, well, slightly more because it's a BMW, but, sorry, cheap shot, Volkswagen guy. But there's this interesting piece of, it's about building that emotional connection, about enabling the conversation and helping those who are like me. You probably never met half of those people that you've waved at, but you have an emotional bond because you share a car. How many of you are iPhone users? How many of you have been out somewhere and been like, oh, hey, what apps do you have installed? The thing is that you need to make it real. It needs to be something that has daily impact on the lives of your users. The story, it's a consulting story, so it doesn't scale in product, but so I used to work at Ryerson. It was a while ago, but it's now been 7 years since I worked there, and they still run a set of the custom HR tools that we deployed in Ryerson HR for recruiting faculty, management employees, and TAs. They have PeopleSoft, but they can't replace those tools because these tools make it easier, faster, smarter, better for them to hire employees. They're too easy to use. The staff won't let them take them away. It's made it real because it's had real impact. The goal is to move up the stack from how do I help people perform tasks to how do I build emotional connections. Having an app on your iPhone for Air Canada to check in, well, that might not be, that's a functional task. Hopefully it's reliable and usable. But as you start to move up, it's building towards the emotional connection of, am I traveling on business? Am I traveling on vacation? What is the experience that I'm having while I'm on the airline? And if it's easier to get through the already stressful period of check-in and check-out and security at the airport, that you get an opportunity to build a better relationship with your customer. It's a marketing decision. Who does this? Who does it really well? What are the products and services that you love? How many of you have been to Target? Or Target, as the Americans like to call it. You know, Target was one of those who said, let's bring design to the masses. Michael Graves, who prior to designing tea kettles for Target, designed tea kettles for Alessi. Those tea kettles were about $800 a piece. You could buy the same tea kettle from Target for $39.99. It wasn't quite the same, but it brought design, it brought an emotional connection with Target. It elevated Target from Target to Target. You didn't need to go to Alessi. You could get that same experience and that same piece when you were shopping for bulk candy bars. Chanel. It's a scent. There's a brand. What do you folks associate Chanel with? Expensive, class. That may say more about you, but how about Mercedes? Apple. You know, Starbucks is an interesting one because it took prior to Starbucks, it was a 79-cent coffee and made it a $4 mocha. But because it wasn't really about the coffee, it was about the experience, about having somewhere to sit and socialize. And if you go around, and the same is true of Tim Hortons. You go out to rural Canada, you'll see people sitting around and being social and hanging out in Tim Hortons. And yeah, it's a very different brand awareness experience than Starbucks, but it is a brand experience. And they've done a very good job building these things. How many people know the power of the blue box? Excited to see the blue box? Doesn't matter what's in the blue box, but it's going to be good. You know it's going to be good. And this is the power of demand generation. You don't have, this is where brand, this is where experience, this is where the evolution of, you know, when you go to well.ca, you know you're going to have a great experience. This is about demand generation. This is about reaching out to people where they are. Social media is the new black. It's not part of your strategy. It is your strategy. It's where people are. You need to be on Facebook. You need to be on IM. Fortunately, you don't have to be on IRC unless you're working with Mozilla, because only the nerds hang out there. It's true. But you got to go out and find out where your audience is. It used to be really easy. They used to watch TV on Thursday nights. Now they're everywhere. You need to find out where your audience is. They might be 65, they might be 55 plus CIOs. And all of this about social media might be untrue. But you need to know that. You need to figure out who is buying your products. You need to find ways to convince people that you have the products that meet their needs. The services that will solve the problems that they're looking for. And so it's funny, I realized that, you know, so I have an undergraduate degree in kinesiology where I had a focus on ergonomics. I went and did human-computer interaction in the School of Computer Science. And for a long time, I fought this idea that I was a designer. And then I got wise. I realized that, you know, the best part about all of this human-computer interaction piece is that it doesn't really matter what the technology does, as long as it does something for somebody. It's not about me. Am I a marketer? Sure. Am I a sales guy? Sure. Am I an HCI professional? Yeah, what the hell? Why not? Because it doesn't matter. It's not about me. Am I a founder? Yeah. Am I an entrepreneur? Yes. It's not about me. It's about my customers. It's not about you. It's about the problems that you solve for others. And this is the goal about being an entrepreneur. You've decided to go into a business, to start a business, to help to solve problems for people. So and this is almost the end for me before we open up and talk about stuff. The first piece is understand your channels, all of them. Digital, print, radio, television, online, offline, events, students. Have you figured out why I'm here? I work for Microsoft. How many of you are building on .NET? And if any hands go up, I'll be surprised. So I mean that in all seriousness. I'm here, we're here because this is where young entrepreneurs make decisions about technology. Sure, you might think we're big, bad, all sorts of things, but we're here. Is Adobe here? Is Sun here? Fortunately they are. They're awesome. Is Google here? The piece is that we're here. You need to understand where the people who make decisions about the products and services that you're offering. You need to build great experiences. Don't settle for mediocre. Mediocrity is what will kill your company. Be awesome. Change the world. Build the best ever. Go out and build the best experience. Don't be satisfied with middle of the road. You don't have to be huge, but you have to be great. So you need to generate it. You need to help build products that generate memories and build emotional connections with your customers. You want them to write about you like they write about well.ca, like they write about FreshBooks, like they write about Dayforce. You want customers that will stand up and scream, that will tattoo your logo to their bodies. You want customers that think you're awesome, and they deserve the respect from you to build something that is world-class. And I think the piece, and this is probably new for Microsoft, is that you need to understand that the future isn't just one. Our future is a mishmash of everything. It'll be mobile. It'll be fixed. It'll be heterogeneous. It'll be open and closed and shared and private. It'll be about knowing when to be in control and when to give stuff away. They'll be paid and free. There isn't one answer to all of this. There's many models, and they all will live together. And the goal is to figure out which one works best for you at the given moment in time for your customers. And so I'm really easy, just like Ali, though twice as good because I have 2 email addresses.
You're going to say F you if we email you.
No, well, so maybe we'll come back to that. I might say F you if you email me anyway, so that's awesome. So the thing about that is this is about demand generation. If you figure out that I get 400 emails a week from an entrepreneur, stand out. Hey, Dave, I saw you at VeloCity 101. I've got a startup that's, because if you send it to me at Microsoft, it better be built on .NET. Just saying, I'm kind of financially incented to make that. But, this is what we're doing. This is why I think it's cool. This is where we think that you can help. Don't just send me, hey, do you want to go for a coffee and a beer? Do you have time? It's like, no. I work 60 hours a week and I have 2 little kids. So generally, I don't just randomly for a beer. I'd rather go have a beer with my friends. But I'm willing to help any entrepreneur who takes the time to say, hey, Dave, I was checking out. I see that you're connected to so-and-so. I see that you run Demo Camp. I was wondering how you select companies that present. Help generate demand from me. Your job, again, is it's demand generation. Help people understand where you fit. And it's about working out those really simple things. Who are your customers? Who are your users? How do you think it's not about you? Which is great because I'm about to say it's all about me. So, but put yourself, be empathetic for the individual, whether it's your customer, whether it's a journalist, whether it's a blogger. You need to understand the other side of the picture. And it's not and maybe this is the simplest piece. It's not how I can help you. I can help everybody in this room. The question needs to be is, if you're in my shoes, why out of everyone in this room would I choose to help you? Make it easy for me to understand that, and you'll make it easy for your customers to connect to you. You make it easy for people to decide that they want to purchase your products and services. So I'm easy to find. Drop me an email. The easiest way, the secret, and I've told Jesse this, the secret way, Jesse will tell you, the secret way to get my attention is actually to hit me on all channels at the same time. So send it to my Twitter account, both email addresses, and call me. All at the same time, and I'm bound to answer one of them to go, God, just stop. It's true. That's how Jesse got me to come out today. I think there was a Facebook message in there too.
No, I stayed off that.
Did you stay off that one? But this is really easy, and I think that the simplest part is you guys have this huge, all joking aside, you guys have this huge opportunity where you get this opportunity to go out and do, whether it's to start something or to join early stage companies like FreshBooks, like Well, like any of Jackie's portfolio, because Overlay, they're just 8 RSS. I owe Carol feedback that I haven't. I owe Carol Lehman email that I haven't gotten to this week, so I'm kind of in her bad books. But you have this awesome opportunity to go out and to learn about what customers need. You're sitting here and you're seeing, so there's lots of us who, when we all started to write code, consuming REST-based services, having RESTful URLs, didn't exist when I went to school. So building service-oriented architectures and multi-device systems, federated systems, they didn't exist. You guys this is your lives. You get to go out and shape what we're going to see next. And I think it's just awesome. I wish I was for many reasons, I wish I was in my 20s again.
No kids?
Yeah, well, actually, I don't wish I didn't have kids. My kids are my favorite thing in the world. So, but if I was going to be an entrepreneur, this is an awesome time to go out and do it. And I think that if it was me, the very first thing that I would be going to do is going to find a business problem. I would sell it, design it, build it. And I would start with the problem first this time. And every time that every time I did that at Reactivity, we had a great company. Every time we thought we knew better than the customers, we failed. So I think it was awesome. I hope you guys go out and I hope you go create the next RIM. I hope somebody goes and I hope somebody's approached Ellie to see what he's hiring for. Or has talked to Mick about what Rogers is doing, or Ilya about what's going on at 8RSS, because there is nothing wrong with joining an early stage startup. Being an early employee is it's different, but it's just as good as being a founder. So, thank you all for having me. A binder. It says VeloCity.
Folder thing.
Awesome. Are there questions? Does anybody want just a preemptive FU? I'm not taking your email.
Questions?
Anybody think I'm drunk or nuts or
Yeah.
some of which are also viable. Highly suspicious based on my publishing of bourbon already.
You actually get 15 startup emails a day.
I get I would say that I easily get,
Canadian?
I easily get 15 a week.
There's only 15 Canadian startups.
No, there's only 15 Canadian startups that matter. Seriously, yeah, I know you. No, I would say that I easily get 3 to 5 a day from, and they're not always startups, they're entrepreneurs. They're people who just say, and it's funny, the ones who, so Taylor Davidson, who runs Unstructured Ventures out of I think he's in DC now. But he was coming through Toronto, and he emailed me. And he didn't just email me with, hey, do you want to get a beer? He was like, hey, I'm Taylor Davidson. I run Unstructured Ventures. I think we first ran into each other at South by Southwest. I'm in town for a couple days. Would love to get together for a beer and talk about blah. And, the blah was entrepreneur ecosystems. So, it's something that, A, it's not just random person pinging me. I had no idea who Taylor Davidson was, but it's stuff that matters to me. Reference points of things that I've done in the past, South by Southwest with them. And, just very clear to, I want to get together because this is the stuff that I'm working on. Here's a set of URLs. And there's nothing worse than the entrepreneur who just sends, hey, I'm working on a new startup. Do you want to get together for coffee? Do you have time? Or do you have time for a coffee? Because the answer is, do I have time? No, I don't. I work from 8 to 6 every day, and then I do stuff with my kids. So it's like, tell me what you're doing, why you think I can help, why it matters to me, and what you want as potential outcomes. Because there's just some things that it's not me, but I might be able to refer you to somebody else. We'll refer everyone to Rick. So what are you guys working on? Now that I just poo-pooed it all. Who's got the next great startup? I already know what you're working on.
I'm wondering what kind of programs you see as the best to help young people like us. I mean, VeloCity is just one example, but across Canada, what are some examples of ways that young people can get more innovative, more to entrepreneurship and technology? I think there's a lot of stuff that just never gets funding, and there's a lot of problems. Like how can young people keep doing things that are innovative and kind of catch their attention?
So I think that maybe we'll start with the first piece, which is funding is you take funding on for a reason. And funding to get paid versus funding to grow a business is two different types of funding. There is no funding that says, or there's very little, there is funding for young entrepreneurs to go out and say, hey, I want to start a company, but it's not like, hey, I'm going to get paid $200 grand a year. It's funding that's in the $5,000 to $10,000 to help you start a business. Generally, there isn't money. You shouldn't be going out. Funding is the last thing that you want to do. If you can build a business on revenues, growth on revenues, that's what you should be going to do. And the way that you get there is you find customers. Sometimes you've got great technology that is undefined and needs funding to grow the intellectual property into a product, into a business. Those are rarer and take more time and have more risk and require. But generally, if you start with the basis of a customer and solving customer problems, you can grow a better business. So I think the thing for all of you is I'd be going to trade shows. I'd be going to understand verticals and markets and to find out the problems that people are having and look for solutions that you have expertise to solve. So, we're talking about your marketing stuff. I think that there's a huge opportunity around, the vertical of campus marketing. There's a great opportunity there. How do you fund it? Well, if you can fund it out of revenue, that's the best way to do it. Because it's going to be hard to raise money for.
But what do you see as programs? I mean, we were talking about the impact thing. Programs that can get young people get more involved in, or programs to get people to take that entrepreneurial route. Because I think there's a lot of things that don't really that, and they kind of.
I don't know. So maybe this is where I'm a bad example of. I don't necessarily think that programs are the right way. I started doing this by working for a startup. I went out and got a job.
Yeah, Ilya did a great talk, and I don't know how many of you caught it, but he started just by starting. Just do it. This 14-year-old starts a business, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, when you start, one of the first startup camps that Jesse and I ran, we had a 14-year-old kid who was running a landscaping business come up. Like, that blew me away. I was so impressed that this kid came out. Once you start, then you will find the people around you, the people that you need, because you'll know what you need once you start. But just start.
That's it. And the big piece is it's not, how many of you think that the first step is to go get funding? Or to find a program? Because that's actually the thing that I don't know, I deeply find myself fighting more and more. It's like, go out and find a customer, build a business, sell them something. And, maybe, the reason that we do, maybe let's be very clear. The reason that we do demo camp is to help raise the lens on startups, whether it's in the GTA, whether it's in Waterloo, whether it's in Edmonton, whether it's in Montreal, is that we know that we have these early stage startups where people have started. They've got customers and they've got solutions. And we need to get, social media awareness. We need to get press awareness. We need to get local people having the opportunity to use it. But that's a PR scheme. It's a way to support a business that's already been started. We do startup camp because in starting these businesses, there's a lot of things that go right and wrong. You can learn from others. Figuring out, one of the things is figuring out who the service providers are that you should listen to. In Toronto, if you're looking for a lawyer and you're a startup, there's honestly, I'll say there's 4, and there's 2 that come to mind right away. If you haven't talked to Rob Heinemann or Susie Dingwall Williams or James Smith from Labarge, Smith and Weinstein, you haven't found the 3 lawyers. If you haven't talked to Deloitte and their early business practice about the taxation and the book side, you're not talking to the only Big 5 consulting firm that has been in the early stage startup game for the last 20 years. We run these things so that we can all think of the service providers, and the leeches and those folks, because it's a small community. There's a group of, I don't know, what is it out here? There's a core group of about 75 of us. There's those that come and go, but there's a group of about 75 of us that have, over the last 3 years, have also, we've seen Ali go from one man to what is one of the hottest startups in the country. We've seen Elliot go through, and I love the new product, by the way, which is what I owe Carol the email for. I've got some criticisms, but I think it's totally in the right direction. His new product, this evolution of it from it's this awesome company that has a product that meets the needs that I'm willing to pay for. And we all hang out and we've seen the challenges, whether it's the challenges recruiting, whether it's the challenges of finding money, whether it's the challenges of the technologies. And it turns out that often we're leading experts in the world, technologies that we're building. We just need a little bit of help on the other sides. So I don't know. I see that the programs are secondary. There's things like VeloCity, I think, is a great idea because you guys all eat and sleep and breathe entrepreneurship. If you didn't have TechCrunch 50 on in the common room, I'd be surprised. If there isn't a subscription to Wired and Fast Company and Business Week and that sits on the on the main tables, and if you aren't all reading them, there will be some.
There's a library coming too.
Some look, and I'll buy books for the library for you. So the idea is that you guys have this huge opportunity to have collisions. A lot of what we think of as a lot of what we think of as innovation is really just creative tension between differing viewpoints. So one of the biggest things that I would say is find somebody in the residence who's totally different than you are, who's in a different program, who's had different work experience, who's thinking about different problems. And if you guys aren't having dinner with somebody new in the residence once a week, you're not taking advantage of everybody who's sitting around you. You've got the folks who want to start companies here. You don't have to go outside and find programs. They're right here. You're all, it's going to seem silly. How many of you want to start a company and change the world? So leverage each other. I think the biggest thing that I've been talking to entrepreneurs about is it's not going to be VCs that save us. It's not going to be government that saves us. It's not going to be community organizations that save us. It's going to be us. We're going to save each other. We're going to save the government. We're going to save the community organizations. We're going to save the universities. All of this. When you talk about great companies, you talk about the people, you talk about those early startups that became huge new businesses. And you guys have this huge opportunity to bang into each other, to share ideas. Do you guys, I don't know, do you guys do, and just shoot me if you want, but like, do you guys, yeah, probably. Well, you guys should be doing, somebody should be presenting a research topic once a week, just over dinner.
We're doing Monday night and Tuesday, we're doing breakfast Tuesday morning.
That's awesome. Like, you should be doing, whether it's technical deep dive or business model deep dive or marketing strategies deep dives, go take, whether it's learning how to pitch, learning how to market, whether it's creative accounting. And we can argue about whether the level of innovation going on in Toronto, but there's huge amounts of innovation going on in the financial services sector. And I personally, I'm not an expert at that. I would love to be, because I'm in one of the hotbeds in the world for what's going on in financial services. If I was like my dad and I was an accountant, which I'm not, I'd be in this huge, I'd have this great opportunity. You guys happen to be at the, if you're not you're at the best technical university in Canada. Hands down. You go anywhere in the world, people go, oh, you went to Waterloo? This is the fucking cream of the crop in this country. And, it's the pedigree that will, when you start companies or when you go look for jobs, this is the right spot to be. Now make something of it. All it is a piece of paper. I went to Carnegie Mellon. I'll tell you, it's only a piece of paper. And it's the connections that you make. So all of these folks who are beside you know them, because they're going to start something awesome. They'll start the next RIM. They'll start the next well.ca. They'll start the next FreshBooks. They'll start the next Dayforce. Other questions? Sorry, and then there aren't programs. Just go do it.
One thing I didn't warn at the beginning is...
I totally ramble.
Yeah.
It's because I'm drunk. So funny.
Other questions?
Sure. So the one thing to add, so finding a customer is social media, right? The one danger there is you have a lot of people with megaphones.
Yeah.
And they start screaming at each other, and it seems like they make a loud noise, and they completely mislead you into a market that I get the sense every time I go to the valley, and I get submerged in there, and it's like, this is total hype, I get it, it's awesome, and then you get back, and it's like, oh my God, what just happened? I got totally sucked in, and they live in their own microcosm, right? And the one thing I found that you have to be careful about is, while social media and all of that stuff is important, and that's where a lot of your customers are, we work with social media, so we have to be in that space. But sometimes you have to see kind of beyond that loud noise and to actually find your customers.
Yeah. And it's actually funny. Most of the presentation was actually started out as a pitch to ad agencies. So, when you look at ad agencies and you look at who their customers are and what their customers are doing, their customers are all moving away from traditional medias and moving to social media and online. So yeah, there's a little bit of the underlying, and you may be, so I have a good friend who runs a concrete company in Owen Sound. It's one of the most successful companies in the concrete vertical in Canada. Never been, the only thing that Facebook is good for is to see drunken party pictures from university. His customers aren't there. His customers, they go to one trade show. It's a trade show it's 10 million square feet. It's some concrete trade show in Las Vegas. It's a group of old boys, so there's a bunch of inappropriate behavior that goes on. But that's where they go. But they know where their customers are. And they go and they spend every single penny at this huge trade show in Vegas. Because that's where, that and one trade publication, that's where they spend their dollars.
So I think the keynote is just to
Know
find
your-
where your customers are, right?
Yeah.
It comes back to, there's nothing inherently wrong, I think, with starting to write code, but the goal there is to quickly identify people that actually care about your product. So for example, the Paul Buchheit and friend feed and all of that, right? One of his things was find 100 customers that care and make them happy.
Yep.
I know that I built something good when I made 100 people happy. And unintentionally, I think we kind of stumbled across that with 8RSS when we launched it, because we had 100 people that were happy, and they were happy to write about it. So find those people.
And that's the piece, is it doesn't have to be 1 billion people. You know, go find, depending on what you're selling, you know, we used to do on enterprise software, it was one customer. You know, and it turned out that that one customer looked like another customer and looked like another customer and looked like another customer. And before we knew it, we had 18 customers. But that's it, right? It's like, you might start by writing code to get enough code to go figure out if it makes the customer happy. But it's not, let's sit, you know, this, how many, and it's less, but you still see it, right? I was heckling one of the Extreme Labs companies yesterday on Startup North about, it's like you're launching in stealth mode. You're not going to, how am I supposed to figure out what you're doing?
Are there any of the guys in here that worked at Extreme Labs? I know there's some of the residents that worked there or some. Yeah, they're not here.
I'm going to still pound. Speaking of building a pyramid.
You probably called them and said, don't go, David Crow's.
Yeah, Crow's there, don't waste your time. Yeah. Customers are just, they're the core of this. We're building businesses. Suck it up. You want to build if you don't want to build a business, you're not an entrepreneur. You're a researcher. Go work in a lab. But all of this is about customers. It might not be, and what we've seen most recently is that there's business models where it's not a direct payment business model. You know, those don't always work, but there are business models where your users aren't your customers. You know, turns out Google's the prime example. Google's and Facebook are some of the prime examples of this, where you have a large enough audience that you're able to generate revenue through advertising, because whether it's better searches, better targeted advertising, but you still need large volumes of searches to make that into a real business model. So, but yeah, customers.
Stay away from that.
You don't go do that. Go do something else.
That's the Britney Spears model. It's hard.
Yeah, well, this is the other thing, right? Like
Well, it's like everybody wants to be a singer, right? So I'm just going to be Britney Spears and make a ton of money. It's the same thing as I'm going to build the next Facebook. The odds of you actually building a site like Facebook are next to none.
well, let's just walk it through, right? Like so it started, first tech company, IBM. The next IBM didn't look anything like IBM. It was Microsoft. The next Microsoft didn't look anything like Microsoft. It was Yahoo. The next Yahoo didn't look anything like Yahoo. It was Google. The next Google didn't look anything like Google. It was Facebook. You know, so this idea that you're going to go out and be the next blah it's going to be something different. And your jobs are to figure out what that next thing is. And some might argue that the next Facebook is Twitter, especially on $1 billion valuation. It's awesome.
All right. Well,
Anybody else want me to yell at them?
Folks have someplace to go that they're late for. I know these ones are. Thank you, David.
Cool. Thanks, guys.